In 1915, Franz Kafka published a story that would become one of the most famous in modern literature. A man named Gregor Samsa wakes up one morning transformed into a giant insect, a monstrous vermin, something between a cockroach and a beetle, with a hard shell and too many legs, and a body that no longer belongs to him. But the horror of the story is not the transformation. The horror is what Gregor thinks about first. Not his body, not his humanity, not his soul, not the metaphysical nightmare of waking up as something inhuman. His job. What has happened to me, he thinks. And then, immediately, in the very next breath, what an exhausting profession I have chosen. Traveling day in and day out. If I did not hold back for my parents' sake, I would have quit long ago. He has become a monstrous vermin. His body is no longer human. And his first anxiety, his deepest reflex, is that he will be late for work. The alarm clock shows it is past 6:30. He was supposed to catch the 5 o'clock train. His boss will be angry. His family depends on his salary. He tries to rock himself out of bed, to get dressed, to make it to the office, even as his new insect legs scramble uselessly in the air. This is not fantasy. This is not absurdism for its own sake. This is diagnosis. Kafka understood something that most of us spend our entire lives refusing to see. The metamorphosis is not the story of a man who becomes an insect. It is the story of a man who realizes he was already an insect, who wakes up for one terrible morning to the truth of what his life had become. We have already been transformed. We have already become vermin, useful, productive, interchangeable creatures whose value is measured entirely by our function. Our first thought in the morning is not wonder or gratitude or love. It is obligation. It is the schedule. It is the boss, the client, the deadline. The metamorphosis already happened. We just have not noticed. I know this because I was Gregor Samsa. Not literally. I did not wake up as an insect. But I woke up one morning after years of achievement and optimization and relentless productive striving, and I felt nothing. I had transformed into something I did not recognize, something that looked like me but was hollow inside. I had won the race. I had achieved the goals. I had done everything the world told me to do. And my prize was an empty room. For years, I had been a high-functioning addict. My drug of choice was achievement. My entire identity, my entire sense of worth, was built on the precarious foundation of my own output. I did not just have a calendar. I was my calendar. Every 30-minute block was a resource to be allocated. My free time was not for rest. It was for optimization. My hobbies were not for joy. They were side hustles waiting to be monetized. I listened to podcasts at double speed, not to learn, but to consume more efficiently. I felt a spike of genuine, almost physical guilt on any day I did not produce something tangible. A walk in the park was time wasted. A conversation with a friend was networking or nothing. A quiet evening was an evening that could have been spent building, creating, advancing. I tracked my sleep to optimize my productivity. I optimized my meals for efficiency. I turned meditation into a productivity hack. Even my rest was a resource to be leveraged for better output. I had become the perfect, idealized, useful machine. And I was profoundly, thoroughly broken. The burnout did not come as a dramatic collapse. It came as a slow graying of everything. The things that used to excite me felt flat. The achievements that used to satisfy me lasted hours instead of days. The future I was building towards seemed, when I looked at it closely, indistinguishable from the present I was sacrificing. Just more work, just more striving, just more useful days stacked on top of each other until they stopped. I had become, like Gregor, an insect who had forgotten he was ever human. In Kafka's novel, The Trial, a man named Joseph K. is arrested one morning. He is never told his crime. He spends the entire book trying to defend himself in a court system he cannot understand, before judges he cannot see, against charges that are never explained. He hires lawyers. He attends hearings. He pleads his case to officials who seem sympathetic but never help. The bureaucracy is endless. The logic is circular. The verdict is always deferred but never dismissed. Joseph K. is not guilty of anything specific. That is the point. He is guilty of existing. He is on trial for being alive in a system that demands constant justification. This is not absurdism. This is a precise description of modern life. We are all Joseph K. We are all on trial. Every day we wake up and defend ourselves before invisible tribunals. The metrics change without warning. The standards shift. We perform for judges we cannot see, trying to prove our value according to rules no one will explain. The performance review, the social media metrics, the comparison to peers, the internal voice that asks constantly, what have you accomplished today? What is your value? What is your use? And the verdict is always the same. Not enough. Try harder. Do more. Be more useful. The trial never ends, because it was never meant to end. The system does not want resolution. It wants production. It wants you running, justifying, defending yourself forever. The moment you stop, the moment you rest, you feel the anxiety of the accused. You feel the tribunal's gaze. Joseph K. dies at the end of the novel. He is executed in a quarry, like a dog, still not knowing his crime, still trying to understand. Most people live the same way, running from a verdict they cannot escape, defending themselves against charges they cannot name, dying in the end, still trying to prove they were useful enough to deserve their life. Kafka knew this trial because he lived it. By day, he worked at the Workers' Accident Insurance Institute in Prague. 8 hours of paperwork, 8 hours of usefulness, claims to process, forms to fill. A respectable position in a respectable institution. A steady salary. Everything a young man from a middle-class Jewish family was supposed to want. By night, he wrote. He wrote in the hours he should have been sleeping. He wrote until 2, 3, 4 in the morning, knowing he would have to wake at 7 for the office. He destroyed his health. He developed the tuberculosis that would eventually kill him. He produced work that no one wanted to publish, that his friends politely discouraged, that his own father dismissed as a waste of time. His father, Hermann Kafka, was a self-made businessman, practical, successful, useful. He had built a wholesale haberdashery from nothing. He had employees, respect, money. He looked at his son's writing and saw nothing. Less than nothing. He saw a grown man wasting his life on useless scribbling when he could have been building something real, something that mattered, something with value. Franz Kafka never married, never had children, never achieved financial independence, never saw his novels published, never escaped his father's shadow or his father's judgment. By every metric the world uses to measure a life, he was a failure. When he died of tuberculosis at 40, unable to eat because the disease had spread to his larynx, he left instructions for his friend Max Brod. Burn everything. Destroy all my manuscripts. My work has no value. It should not survive me. Brod disobeyed. And now, a century later, Kafka's useless midnight scribbling is read in every language on earth. His insurance reports are dust. His respectable career is forgotten. The files he processed, the claims he approved, the useful work that consumed his daylight hours, all of it has vanished without trace. The useful Kafka disappeared. The useless one remains. 2,000 years before Kafka, on the other side of the world, a Chinese philosopher named Zhuangzi told a story. A carpenter and his apprentice are walking through a forest. They come upon an oak tree of extraordinary size. Its trunk is massive, wider than 10 men could embrace. Its branches could shelter 1,000 people. It is ancient and vast and magnificent. The apprentice, trained to see the world in terms of utility, is immediately struck by its potential. He sees lumber, ships, houses, furniture, a fortune in timber. "Master," he says, "this is the finest tree I have ever seen. We must use it." The carpenter barely glances at it. He tells his apprentice to keep walking. "This," he says, "is a worthless tree, a trash tree. Its wood is gnarled and twisted. The grain is warped and knotted. You cannot make boats from it. They would sink. You cannot make houses. They would crumble. You cannot make furniture. It would fall apart. This tree is useless. That is why it is still standing." That night, the tree appears to the carpenter in a dream. "You compare me," the tree says, "to your useful trees. The pear tree with its sweet fruit, the orange tree with its harvest, the straight oak with its strong timber. But what is their fate? Because the pear tree bears fruit, people break its branches. Because the orange tree is useful, people strip it bare. Because the straight oak is valuable, the axe comes for it young. They live short, violent lives precisely because they have demonstrated their usefulness to the world. Their utility is their death sentence. But I have spent a long time learning to be useless. I have made myself gnarled and crooked and good for nothing. And what has this given me? This great, ancient, magnificent life. The world looked at me, found no use for me, and left me in peace. The useful trees die young beneath the axe. I will live out my days. Tell me, carpenter, is it better to be useful, or is it better to be free? Kafka's midnight writing was his useless tree. His father saw it as worthless. The world saw no value in it. No publisher wanted it. No salary came from it. It produced nothing useful, fed no one, built nothing tangible. And it is the only part of him that survived. The useful Kafka, the insurance clerk who processed claims and filed reports and performed his function in the machine. That Kafka is gone. No one reads his paperwork. No one studies his files. His usefulness has been utterly forgotten. But the useless Kafka, the one who stayed up too late writing stories no one asked for, that Kafka is immortal. This is the paradox that Zhuangzi understood and Kafka embodied. Usefulness is a trap. The more useful you become, the more the world demands of you. The straighter you grow, the more the carpenter wants your timber. The more valuable your fruit, the more hands reach to break your branches. The useful trees fall young. The gnarled one remains. Zhuangzi tells another story. The king of Chu hears of Zhuangzi's wisdom and sends 2 officials to offer him a position as chief minister. Great honor, great power, great usefulness to the state. It is the kind of offer that most people would consider the culmination of a life. They find him fishing by the river. Zhuangzi does not look up. He does not bow or show deference or express gratitude for the honor. He asks them a question. I have heard, he says, that the king possesses a sacred tortoise. It has been dead for 3,000 years. The king keeps it wrapped in silk, stored in a precious box, honored in his ancestral temple. It is the most venerated object in the kingdom. Tell me, would this tortoise rather be dead, with its bones preserved and honored? Or would it rather be alive, dragging its tail through the mud? The officials answer without hesitation. It would rather be alive, dragging its tail in the mud. Zhuangzi waves them away. Then go. Leave me to drag my tail in the mud. This is the choice that we are never taught to see. You can be honored. You can be preserved in silk. You can be useful to the king, to the company, to the system. You can have the title and the salary and the respect, but you will be dead. A sacred object, a decorated corpse, useful to everyone except yourself. Or you can be alive, muddy, unimpressive, dragging your tail through ordinary days, unknown, unhonored, useless to the system, but breathing, free. The world calls the first option success. Zhuangzi calls it death. The Taoists have a concept that our modern, striving minds find almost impossible to grasp: Wu Wei. It is usually translated as non-action or non-doing, but this translation is wrong, and the misunderstanding matters. Wu Wei does not mean doing nothing. It does not mean laziness or passivity or giving up. It means acting without forcing. The productive machine, the person I used to be, is a creature of constant aggression against reality. He rows frantically upstream. He imposes his will on the world. He forces outcomes through sheer effort. He believes that more struggle always equals more result, that grinding harder is the answer to every problem. And he is exhausted precisely because this is a war he can never win. The river does not stop. Reality does not yield to will. The harder he rows, the faster he burns out. Wu Wei is the art of dropping the oars and raising a sail. It is not passivity. It is a different kind of action. Action aligned with the current instead of against it. Effort that flows instead of fights. The Taoists observed water, soft, yielding. It does not fight the rock. It does not try to smash through by force. It goes around, and given enough time, it wears the rock away entirely. The soft overcomes the hard. The yielding overcomes the rigid, not through force, but through persistence, through patience, through alignment with the nature of things. They observed the bamboo. When the storm comes, the oak stands firm, proud, strong, useful. The carpenter would love its timber, and the oak snaps. The bamboo bends almost to the ground. It looks defeated. It looks weak. It looks useless. And when the storm passes, the bamboo straightens. The bamboo survives. Wu Wei is the bamboo. It is the water. It is the gnarled tree that survives because it never tried to be straight. Consider how you learn to ride a bicycle. At first, you gripped the handlebars with white knuckles. You tensed every muscle. You tried to force balance through sheer effort and concentration. And you fell. Again and again, you fell. Then, at some point, you stopped trying so hard. You relaxed your grip. You let the bicycle move beneath you, and suddenly, effortlessly, you could ride. That moment of letting go, that moment when trying less achieved more, that is Wu Wei. Kafka practiced a kind of Wu Wei without knowing it. He did not force his writing to be successful. He did not optimize for the market. He did not brand himself or network or build a platform. He simply wrote what came to him in the only hours he had and let it be what it was: useless, unprofitable, true, and it outlasted everything he forced. But I will not lie to you. There is a cost to this. The useless tree survives. It lives its long, magnificent life. But it lives alone. No one gathers beneath its branches to harvest fruit. No carpenter praises its form. No one builds monuments from its wood. It stands in the forest, gnarled and ignored, while the useful trees are felled with honor, their timber praised, their sacrifice celebrated. Kafka died unknown. He died asking for his work to be burned. He never knew that anyone would read him. He never received the validation that his useful, respectable insurance career was supposed to provide. The loser, the one who refuses the game of achievement, is not rewarded by the world. The world does not understand. The world does not applaud. The world looks at you with your unmonetized hobbies, your unoptimized hours, your stubborn refusal to perform, and it calls you lazy, aimless, a failure. It looks at you dragging your tail in the mud and wonders what went wrong. Your family may not understand. They were raised in the same system. They measure love in achievement. They worry about you because you are not advancing, not climbing, not becoming more useful. They want you to straighten, to bear fruit, to succeed. Their concern is real, and it will not stop. Your friends may drift toward people who are going somewhere. The achievement society bonds people through shared striving, shared anxiety, shared competition. When you stop striving, you become hard to relate to. You are no longer running the same race. You do not have the same anxieties, the same goals, the same complaints. You become, in a subtle way, a stranger. The metrics by which society measures a life will not reflect your value. The resume will have gaps. The titles will be modest. The net worth will not compound. By every external measure, you will look like you lost. You will not be the sacred tortoise wrapped in silk. You will be the muddy one by the river, invisible, uncelebrate, dragging your tail through ordinary days. This is the price of freedom. Kafka paid it. Zhuangzi paid it. The gnarled tree pays it every day it is passed by. The useless life trades the admiration of carpenters for the experience of living. The tortoise trades honor for breath. The loser trades success for something that cannot be measured, cannot be displayed, cannot be put on a resume. Peace, integrity, a life that belongs to itself. You have to decide if that trade is worth it. No one can decide for you. I am not telling you to quit your job and become a hermit. That is not what the parable means. That would just be another achievement, another optimization, another way of being the best at something, even if that something is renunciation. Most of us cannot escape the system. We have bills, families, obligations. We wake up every morning and go to the office, just as Kafka did. We process our claims and answer our emails and perform our usefulness. That is the reality. The revolution is not external. It is internal. The practice is not to flee the world. It is to build a forest inside yourself that the world cannot touch. This means protecting space in your life that is sacred because it is useless. A hobby you will never monetize. An hour you will never optimize. Time spent doing something for no reason other than the doing itself. It might be drawing badly, playing an instrument with no intention of performing, walking without a destination or a podcast, sitting in silence without meditating for productivity, reading a book that will not advance your career, having a conversation that is not networking, staring at a wall, doing nothing at all. Kafka's useless space was the hours between midnight and dawn. That was his forest. That was where the gnarled tree grew. The moment the voice whispers, "You could turn this into something. You could be better at this. You could make this useful." Recognize that voice. That is the carpenter eyeing your branches. That is the axe being sharpened. That is the tribunal demanding you justify your existence. The practice is to notice that voice and let it pass, to continue the useless activity for the only reason that matters, because it is yours, because it brings you alive, because it needs no justification. This is not laziness. Laziness is avoidance, numbing, escape. This is presence. This is the radical act of doing something for its own sake, in a world that demands every action have a purpose beyond itself. This is the gnarled tree, growing wild in the direction the sun pulls it, refusing to straighten for the carpenter. Gregor Samsa, transformed into an insect, eventually stops trying to be useful. In the final part of the metamorphosis, he has been hidden away in his room. His family has stopped feeding him. He has become a burden, an embarrassment, a problem. The traveling salesman who supported everyone has become the vermin they wish would disappear. And something shifts in him. He stops struggling. He stops trying to communicate. He stops trying to prove he is still Gregor, still human, still useful. He listens to his sister play the violin through the door. He experiences, perhaps for the first time, something like peace. He dies that night. His family is relieved. But there is something in that final scene, something Kafka seems to be showing us. Gregor, in his uselessness, in his complete abandonment of the struggle to be valuable, finds a kind of freedom he never had as the dutiful, productive son. The insect body that horrified him becomes, in the end, a liberation from the role he never wanted. It is a dark ending. Kafka does not promise us resurrection or reward. The useless one dies alone and is swept up with the garbage. But he dies free. And that, Kafka seems to say, might be worth something. The useful trees fall young. This is the truth that Zhuangzi whispered 23 centuries ago. This is the truth that Kafka lived and died without knowing anyone would hear. The world measures us by our utility. It asks, from our first breath, what we will become, what we will produce, what we will be good for. It processes us through schools that rank us, jobs that rate us, systems that reduce us to our function. It teaches us to see ourselves through the carpenter's eyes, to evaluate our own worth by our straightness, our usefulness, our marketable timber, and those who play the game best, those who become the straightest, strongest, most useful lumber, they are rewarded with the axe. They are cut down young. They are turned into furniture for someone else's house, ships for someone else's journey, beams for someone else's building. Their usefulness is extracted, used up, and forgotten. The gnarled tree, the useless one, the loser who refuses to straighten, stands in the forest for 1,000 years. It grows in its own direction. It shelters what it chooses to shelter. It belongs to no one and nothing but itself and the sun that pulls it upward. Kafka's useful career is forgotten. His useless writing is eternal. The sacred tortoise is dead and honored. The muddy one is alive and free. Joseph K. died defending himself against charges he never understood. Gregor Samsa found peace only when he stopped trying to be useful. Zhuangzi waved away the king's messengers and went back to his fishing. The choice is not between success and failure. That is the frame the system wants you to use. The choice is between two kinds of life, one that belongs to the system and one that belongs to you. One life spent straightening yourself for the carpenter, One life spent growing gnarled and wild and free. The world will call you a loser if you choose the second. Your family will worry. Your peers will judge. The voice inside you, trained for decades in the religion of usefulness, will scream that you are wasting your potential. The carpenter will pass you by, and you will live, not the venerated life of the decorated corpse, wrapped in silk, honored and dead. The muddy life, the midnight life, the life that drags its tail through days that belong to no one but you. That is the virtue of being useless. Not laziness, not failure, not giving up. Freedom. The freedom that Gregor Samsa found only in death. The freedom that Kafka found in his midnight hours, coughing blood, writing sentences that no one wanted. The freedom that Zhuangzi found by the river, watching his line drift in the current, needing nothing from the king. The freedom that is waiting for you on the other side of the tribunal, on the other side of the performance review, on the other side of the voice that asks what you are worth. You are worth nothing. And that is the most liberating sentence you will ever hear. You are worth nothing to the system. You are worth nothing to the carpenter. You are worth nothing to the king who wants to wrap you in silk. You are worth everything to yourself, to the hours that belong to you, to the gnarled, strange, magnificent thing you might become if you stop trying to be straight. The axe is coming for the useful trees. It always does. Become gnarled, become useless, become free.